If you ask me what I remember most about my childhood, it isn't the birthdays or the games of tag in the summer dusk, or even my little sister's shriek of laughter as she chased soap bubbles on the front lawn. What I remember, clear as the skin pressed against my bones, is the house we lived in and the way the shadows in my bedroom would breathe when I couldn't sleep. They said Candlewood Lane was safe, a sleepy street where the only excitement was Mrs. Kelly's garden gnome being stolen, or the ice cream truck making its tinny rounds. But every house has its secrets, and sometimes those secrets choose not to stay quiet. I was 9 when we moved in. My mother had found a place after the divorce, declaring it a steal and cozy, but I hadn't liked the way the front steps sagged or by the cold air that hung inside, no matter how hot the summer sun grew outside. My sister, Ellie, was only 5. She claimed the room with the pink wallpaper and the window that overlooked Mrs. Kelly's roses. My room was small, plain, with scuffed hardwood, a rickety dresser, and a battered toy chest left by the previous owners. My mother, practical and tired, told me that old houses make old sounds. Settling, she called it, floorboards moaning, pipes whispering. The story adults always sell to children who haven't yet learned what lives in the gaps between reason and fear. The first night, I lay awake long after Ellie's soft snores had gone quiet. I stared up at the ceiling where I'd stuck glow-in-the-dark stars. In the hush, I could hear the wind crawling to the trees outside, branches scraping against the walls. Casting writhing shadows, I tried to convince myself were only tricks of the light. I kept telling myself it was nothing at all. But not everything was so easy to explain away. There was a shadow, one that crouched in the corner nearest the toy chest, thicker, darker than the rest. I thought at first it was just a tumble of my clothes and a half-light, or one of my old stuffed animals. But the more I stared, the more it felt wrong. When I blinked, it was gone, quick as a flick of the light. Still, coldness sank deep into my skin. Cold that wasn't from the night air, but something inside me, crawling up my spine. The next morning, my toy chest stood wide open, every toy inside jumbled and turned over as if something had been searching through them. I always shut it before bed. My mother would have scolded me if I hadn't. But that morning, she just shook her head, muttered about forgetfulness, and went to make coffee. Ellie ate her cereal and didn't look at me. Things worsened as summer burned on. Ellie started to wake up crying, muttering to herself about the man in the closet. At first, I thought it was just childish imagination, but the way she said it, so matter-of-fact, made the hair prickle on the back of my neck. My mother, ever practical, said kids saw things. But that night, Ellie refused to sleep without the closet door shut tight and made Mom say an extra prayer. That same night, I woke again to a sound something like fingernails dragging along wood. I froze, heart pounding so hard it seemed to fill my head, paralyzing me. I wanted to call for Mom, but my voice was gone. The sound stopped right at the edge of my bed, and I lay there, sweating, not daring to look. When morning came, I found long, fresh scratches gouged into the wood flooring beside my bed. This time, Mom got angry, accused me of dragging furniture, but I hadn't moved an inch. Maybe, if things had stopped there, I could have convinced myself it was all my imagination, a child's mind running wild in an empty house. But that was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, I started to hear faint whispers leaking from my closet at night, sometimes like a broken radio, sometimes just below my threshold of understanding. There were nights I woke to find my bedroom door half open, though I always shut it tight. Once, in the biting cold winter, I awoke to find a figure, a tall, hulking shadow, peering around my doorframe. I told my mom everything. I told her about the shadow, the open toy chest, the voices in my closet. It wasn't until Ellie started screaming in the night, pointing at cold, empty corners, that my mother's face began to change. She started lighting candles and saying prayers in every room. It made things quiet for a little while, but secrets never stayed buried for long on Candlewood Lane. Life on Candlewood Lane settled, or so my mother hoped. She returned to her routines, humming as she sorted laundry or scribbled bills at the kitchen table. But I could feel something winding tighter in the walls, a sensation that pressed in every time the sun slipped behind the trees and the house fell silent. Ellie clung to me more often, trailing after me down the hallway or curling up on my bed, her small fingers gripping mine until dawn. It was late July when things shifted. The air lingered thick and heavy, and even cicadas outside seemed quieter than usual. That night, after Mom put us to bed and kissed us each on the forehead, the hush in my room felt deeper, like standing on the bottom of a river with the water pressing above. I don't know what woke me, a sound maybe, or the flicker of moonlight crawling across the floor. But as I rolled over, my eye caught the closet door, closed as always, or nearly closed. Tonight, a sliver of blackness yawned, wide enough for something to peer through, if it wanted. My heart thudded as I stared at that gap. The closet was where the whispers came from most nights. I pressed my pillow tighter to my chest and tried to make myself smaller, quieter, hoping whatever was in there would forget about me. But then I saw it, a pair of hands, pale and impossibly long, curling around the doorframe from the inside. My breath caught and I shut my eyes. Behind my lids, I heard the faintest rasp, a whisper, not quite words, not quite a breath. When I opened my eyes again, the hands were gone. The closet stood empty, the gap black as ink. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, bruised by exhaustion and fear, I told Mom what I'd seen. She knelt in front of me, smoothing my hair back and forcing a smile. Dreams can feel real. Honey, it's just a dream. But I could see the way her fingers trembled at my hairline. Later that day, as I sat with Ellie on the front steps, she leaned her head against my shoulder. He hasn't left. He talks to me at night sometimes. Her voice was small, distant. I didn't know what to say. That evening, thunder rolled in from the west. Branches clattered at the windows, wind howling in the chimney. As lightning flashed, power sputtered and died. We lit candles, the house flickering with yellow light and looming shadows. Mom laughed, made a game of it for Ellie, but I could see the dart of her eyes each time a shadow moved against the walls. That night, the house was all breathing darkness and restless dreams. I was almost asleep, lulled by rain on the roof, when another sound cut through, a loud, hollow thump from Ellie's room. I jumped from my bed, bare feet skidding across the cold floor, and burst into her room. She was sitting bolt upright, wide-eyed. "He was in the corner," she whispered. He told me not to tell. Mom came rushing in with the candle, her face drawn and white. After that, she let Ellie sleep in her bed. I lay awake for hours, listening to storm die down, watching the shadows pool under the door. For days, it seemed like the house held its breath. No voices, no scratches, no cold spots in the middle of the night. We woke, we dressed, we went about our routines. I even convinced myself it might be over. But Candlewood Lane keeps its secrets tight. One afternoon, I was the first home from school. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The hush was total, heavy, expectant. I made my way to my room, backpack thumping at my side. The bedroom door was open. My toy chest was closed, but every single toy, truck, stuffed bear, plastic dinosaur, had been set out, carefully posed in a circle on the floor. I stood frozen in the doorway, breath held. For a split second, I thought I saw something slink into the closet's shadow before my eyes could focus. Mom came home half an hour later, calling my name. I told her what had happened, but she blamed the cat, as always. That night, curled in bed, a sick weight anchored deep in my stomach. I understood something then, something that made my skin crawl. Whatever was haunting us wasn't just in the closet or the corners. It was everywhere, waiting for the moments we were most alone. That's when the dreams began. I never told anyone about the dreams. How could I? How do you explain the feeling of drowning in darkness that doesn't leave a mark, or of waking with an icy breath on your cheek while the rest of the world sleeps soundly? In my dreams, the corners of my room stretched impossibly deep. The shadows grew legs, and a voice, dry as dead leaves, called my name. At first, I told myself it was just fear. I was old enough, I thought, to know the difference between nightmares and reality. But nightmares have a way of seeping through the cracks. They mold themselves into memory, lurk in ordinary things. It was after one such dream, with the morning light exposing only my tangled sheets and a cold sweat, that I began to dread nighttime as much as Ellie did. We spoke little by day, except when Ellie clung to me with haunted eyes, whispering, "She's coming back." Mom didn't ask questions anymore. She was always busy, always tired, face pinched as if bracing for an invisible blow. One night, as summer storm overhead and the windows rattled, I awoke to a tapping, soft, persistent, on my bedroom glass. I tried to blame the tree branches, recall my mother's warnings about letting the wind scare me. But when I looked, nothing brushed the glass. No branches. Nothing at all. The tapping continued. Slow, deliberate. Each tap seemed to echo in my chest, making my breath shallow, my heart quicken. I hid beneath my blanket. The sound stopped, only to return as I tentatively peeked out. Pressed against the second-story window was a pale, impossibly long hand. It didn't move for what felt like forever. I stared, unblinking, as the hand lingered, fingers splayed wide enough to blot out the moonlight behind it. Then, slowly, it slid down the glass and vanished. The next morning, I tried to describe it to Mom, but she only laughed, shaking her head at my overactive imagination. Ellie watched me with her big, solemn eyes, and I knew she understood. Later that week, she told me about the woman in her room. The White Lady, she called her. She sits on my bed and stares. Her eyes are black. She says my name sometimes, but it sounds wrong. I felt a cold lump in my stomach. I asked Mom to check on Ellie at night, but she brushed me aside, mumbling about kids making each other scared. But things changed on a humid, sleepless night. I jolted awake to the sound of Ellie screaming from across the hall. I tore into her room. Her body was a tight ball under the covers, sobbing, gasping for breath. It took ages to calm her. "She was here," Ellie whispered once she could speak. She was standing by my door, staring. Her eyes, I saw them, I did. For the next weeks, Ellie refused to sleep alone. She came to my room most nights, her fingers tied around my arm, or sometimes we both ended up in Mom's bed, pressed close for comfort. I began to dream of the White Lady, too. In the dream, she was taller than any adult, with hair that hung limp and black. Her dress seemed to ripple even when the air was still. Most nights, she stood in the corner, whispering my name, her voice scraping at my nerves like twigs on stone. Sometimes I woke and could still hear the thin echo, words I didn't understand. One night, I woke to see her standing at the foot of my bed, her face pale as chalk, her eyes twin voids. I tried to scream, but my voice was lost in the dark. The moment stretched, timeless. When I blinked, she was gone, but my closet stood wide open, the room colder than the empty street outside. I begged Mom to let me sleep in her room. She sighed, said it was time to be brave. I suspected she didn't want to admit her own fear. The true horror arrived during another storm, rain pelting the window, wind keening through the trees. I woke again. My window creaked open, slow, deliberate, though the lock had been set. The lock turned on its own. The window slid open, and she was there, the White Lady, floating, her feet hovering above the floor. She drifted toward me, her face inches from mine, icy breath grazing my skin. This time, I screamed until my mother rushed in, flicking the lights, her eyes wild. The window was shut tight. The White Lady was gone. But fear, like a stain, lingered through every inch of our house. I rode my bike most afternoons, tracing loops along the cracked sidewalks of Candlewood Lane. After everything that happened at night, the sunlit streets felt like a sanctuary. I learned the rhythm of the neighborhood, the pattern of mail deliveries, the whir of sprinklers with a pavement buckled near the old oak tree. But there was one house I always watched with quiet curiosity, its driveway sloping down to meet the street, guarded by wide lawns and a row of sun-bleached hedges. The first time I saw the old man, he was standing at the edge of that driveway. He wore a faded brown hat, his posture straight yet somehow frail, and watched the road with eyes that seemed to know every secret. I was cautious, of course. Mom's rules kept me on my side of the street. Still, every time I pedaled by, he'd lift a hand and call out, "How's that red bike treating you?" Sometimes he'd ask about my sister, or the bell I'd fix to the handlebars. Once in a while, he'd toss me a joke and I'd laugh, feeling a shy relief in exchange. We never spoke face to face. His voice carried from driveway to curb. Always kind, always just enough to make me feel like someone was paying attention. I never told Mom how the old man knew things about me. The car Dad bought, the way my little brother whined for chocolate milk. I figured he was just observant, or maybe other grown-ups talked to him about us neighborhood kids. Then for a week, the driveway was empty. I rode by every afternoon, the house shuttered, the curtains drawn tight. It felt unusual. The absence made me uneasy. One day, I saw a woman out back, hair tied and watering flowers. I lingered. One had called to her as I had to the old man, but shyness and a hint of fear chased me away. Curiosity gnawed at me. The next afternoon, I found myself crossing the street, heart thundering with imagined trouble. The house seemed larger up close, its wood faded and yard untended. I stopped near the back gate as the woman spotted me. She wasn't angry, just surprised. When I explained about the old man, about how he'd always waved and told me jokes, her face changed. "That sounds a lot like my husband," she said softly. He passed last year." Her voice was gentle, but I felt cold inside, like a shadow moving through my skin. I asked if she had a photo, and she nodded. A moment later she returned, holding a small framed picture. The man's hat, his smile, nearly everything matched, except for a thin scar stretching from ear to mouth. I hadn't seen a scar. Maybe it was hidden, maybe he'd rubbed it away. But when she told me nobody else lived in the house, I suddenly felt dizzy. I thanked her, backing down the driveway without looking behind me. That night I lay awake, thinking about the old man, his stories, and the wide, secret smile. At midnight, I woke to the sound of my name being called outside my window. The voice was familiar, warm yet far away, echoing through the gentle patter of summer rain. I screamed for my mother. She rushed in, calmed me, checked the window herself. No one was outside, just the rain and the hush of Candlewood Lane. My father checked the locks and made jokes about dreams, but I knew what I'd heard. The next morning, my throat was raw and my head full of questions. Days passed, the memory fading until nothing was left but an ache, like a stone under my chest. I kept the new bike routes, avoiding the empty driveway. Years later, even as I grew and my family moved on, the memory never softened. I sometimes wondered if anyone else had heard the voice in the rain, if anybody else remembered the friendly old man who stood by the curb, waiting for someone to wave back. Sometimes late at night, I would think about the man, the driveway, and the empty window. And sometimes, I swear, I would hear my name, whispered to the dark by someone who shouldn't still be watching. Even now, years later, I can still feel that first night creeping into my bones, the moment when the fabric of what I thought was normal began to tear. My room on Candlewood Lane wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a gateway, a threshold where everything familiar twisted into something unrecognizable. That summer was saturated with quiet dread. The old house was more than wood and nails. It had a history, a weight I didn't understand then, but felt like a slow poison. The floorboards creaked underfoot, and every odd creak or groan could be a step from the unseen or a whisper from the walls themselves. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and something else, something faint like damp earth or forgotten memories. One afternoon, I found an old, cracked floorboard near my closet. It looked out of place, lighter than the rest. My heart skipped as I pried it up with a screwdriver I borrowed from Dad's toolbox. Beneath, a small cavity swallowed the light, fertile with dust and shadows. Nestled inside was a bundle of worn letters, yellow with time yet carefully tied with faded ribbon. The letters were pungent with secrets. They spoke of a man named Harold and a woman who mourned him. There were references to strange noises, to footsteps in night, and an unshakable feeling that somebody or something never really left the house. One letter bore a shaky signature, Eleanor. I folded the letters back carefully and replaced the board, but the discovery made the house thrum louder, grow colder. Over the next nights, the whispers in the closet turned into murmurs, half words in desperate sighs, like someone trapped in shadow walls. My sister and I shared hushed talks, our childhood innocence twisting into something fragile and fierce. We weren't just living in a house. We were living with echoes of life lost, of pain buried beneath layers of time. Our mother's fatigue deepened, and I suspected she sensed the history too, but refused to face it. One stormy night, the house erupted with noise, slamming doors, shattering glass. I ran through the hall, calling for Ellie, only to stop frozen before the basement door. The air below was a tapestry of cold and silence. I never ventured down there. Not then. I realized the house was alive with memories, with something old and aching. The man in the driveway, the white lady at the window, the scratches on my floor. They were threads woven into the house's mourning, reaching through time to touch us, to warn us, to maybe ask for release. But some secrets don't want to be found. They want to linger in the spaces between night and day, in the folds of long shadows, where even the bravest hearts might falter. And I was only 9. The days following the discovery beneath the floorboards were a blur of tension and silence. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something, an apology, a release, or perhaps just acknowledgement. I felt it too, a heavy tightening in my chest whenever I walked past that closet, as if the shadows within were watching me with patient eyes. What haunted Candlewood Lane wasn't just ghosts or strange noises. It was a past buried beneath the walls, the lives once lived and lost in that place. The man in the driveway, Harold, whose laughter still echoed faintly in my memory, the white lady, the spectral sentinel trapped in a storm, and the restless fingers dragging across my floorboards. They were all pieces of the same puzzle. That summer taught me that old houses remember everything. Every sorrow, every secret, every small act of love or cruelty lingers in the very air we breathe. Candlewood wasn't just a building. It was a keeper of stories, waiting for someone to listen. Some nights, when the wind howled and the shadows stretched long, I could feel Harold watching from the driveway, the white lady standing patiently at the window, and the man in the closet whispering my name from the depths of darkness. I learned to live with their presence, as much a part of me as the scars I carried. And sometimes, in the quiet moments before dawn, I swear I hear the nails scraping softly on the floor, the faintest call from a lost world reaching through the years. Candlewood Lane never let me go, and maybe I never really wanted to leave.